You check your bank account and the number is lower than it should be. You did not buy anything big this month. No vacation, no new phone, no shopping spree you can point to and blame. And yet somehow, $300 just disappeared. If you sat down right now and tried to explain exactly where that money went, you probably could not do it. Not because you are careless, and not because you are bad with money, but because the system that governs modern spending was never designed to be noticed. This is one of the most common and most invisible ways people lose control of their finances, and almost nobody talks about it honestly. It is not the big purchases that are draining your account. It is the small ones you do not even remember making. Think about the last time you looked at your full bank statement line by line. Not the summary, not the total, but every single transaction from the last 30 days. Most people have never done this once in their entire adult life. They check their balance, they glance at whether a paycheck cleared, and they move on. And that is exactly the problem. The average person is running somewhere between 7 and 12 recurring subscriptions in the background of their financial life at any given moment. And most of them could not name half of those subscriptions if you asked. Picture the ones you probably have without even thinking about it. A streaming service you signed up for during a free trial 2 years ago, and never once went back to watch anything else. An app you downloaded for a single project, gave your card number to without hesitation, and forgot the moment the project ended. A gym membership from a New Year's resolution that lasted 6 weeks. None of these charges feel dangerous individually. $5 here, $12 there, $9.99 somewhere else. Each one on its own looks like nothing worth your attention. But money does not care how small a charge feels to you emotionally in the moment you glance past it. It only cares about the total quietly leaving your account every single month, compounding in the background while you focus on the visible, obvious expenses instead. This is called subscription creep, and it is not an accident. It is a business model. Companies do not want you thinking about their monthly charge, and they certainly do not want you thinking about canceling it. Consider how deliberately this is engineered. Free trials are designed to convert automatically into paid plans unless you take an active step to stop them. And that active step is usually buried several menus deep, sometimes requiring a phone call, sometimes requiring you to speak to a retention specialist whose entire job is to talk you out of leaving. Annual renewals hit your card once a year with no reminder email, no notification, nothing except a charge that appears and disappears into a sea of other transactions before you ever notice it happened. Bundled services convince you to pay for 5 features when you only ever use one because the bundle feels like a better deal than paying for the single feature alone. None of this is careless design. It is friction, engineered specifically to make staying more convenient than leaving, because the entire subscription economy depends on inertia, not satisfaction. But subscriptions are only half of the story. The harder half is something psychologists have studied for decades, sometimes called the latte factor, and while the name sounds a little dated now, the underlying concept has never been more relevant to how people actually spend. It refers to the small, frequent purchases that feel too insignificant to matter in the moment you make them. A coffee on the way to work, purchased almost on autopilot. A food delivery app fee stacked quietly on top of a meal you could have made at home for a fraction of the cost. An impulse buy at checkout, the kind that costs less than $10 and gets added to your cart in the final seconds before you complete an order, almost as an afterthought. Here is what makes this pattern so dangerous. Your brain has a built-in bias that treats small purchases as financially neutral, almost as though they do not count at all. Spending $20 registers as a real decision. You feel it. You weigh it, even if only briefly. But spending $4 feels like nothing, practically weightless, barely worth a second thought. The trouble is that $4, 5 times a week, every week of the year, adds up to over $1,000 annually. And that is just one single category of small spending, out of dozens that most people engage in constantly without ever consciously noticing any of them. This happens because your brain is simply not built to track small, frequent transactions the same way it tracks large, infrequent ones. When you make a big purchase, something like a television or a new laptop, you consciously weigh the decision. You compare prices. You think seriously about whether you can actually afford it right now. But small purchases skip that entire mental process completely because the amount feels far too trivial to deliberate over in the first place. This is not a character flaw, and it is not a sign of weak willpower. The real problem is that modern spending has been deliberately restructured around small, frequent transactions, specifically because companies understand this cognitive blind spot and design their entire pricing and payment experience to exploit it. Digital payments make this dramatically worse. When you pay with physical cash, there is a tangible, visceral feeling of money actually leaving your hand. Behavioral research on spending consistently shows that people spend meaningfully more when paying with cards or digital wallets compared to cash, simply because the psychological friction of physically parting with money has been completely removed from the transaction. Most people are not even manually typing in a card number anymore. Payment information is saved automatically. One tap, one thumbprint, and the transaction is already complete before you have had a real chance to think about it. The distance between wanting something and actually buying it has shrunk to almost nothing, and that shrinking distance is precisely what is draining your account without your active permission, purchase by purchase, day after day. So what actually works here? Not extreme restriction, not swearing off coffee forever out of guilt, not deleting every app on your phone in a moment of frustration, only to reinstall half of them within a week. The first and most effective step is doing a full subscription audit once, right now, today, while this idea is still fresh in your mind. Open your bank statement and your credit card statement and go through every single recurring charge from the last 2 full months, one line at a time. Write down what each charge actually is, what it costs you monthly, and whether you have genuinely used that service in the past 30 days. If the honest answer is no, cancel it immediately before the retention offer or the guilt of losing a discount talks you out of it. This single exercise alone often recovers somewhere between $50 and $150 a month for the average person, money that was leaving their account with zero conscious decision behind it. Second, put a small amount of intentional friction back into your spending on purpose. If food delivery apps are your particular weak spot, delete the app from your phone entirely and only order through a web browser where you are forced to manually log in every single time. If impulse shopping tends to get you, place items in your cart and then deliberately wait 24 hours before allowing yourself to actually buy them. This is not about making spending impossible or punishing yourself for wanting things. It is about restoring the small moment of conscious decision-making that modern digital convenience has quietly stripped away from you. Third, track every small purchase for just 1 week. Everything under $20 without changing your behavior at all during that week. Just observe honestly and write every single one down as it happens. Most people are genuinely shocked by the total at the end of 7 days, not because any single purchase felt unreasonable on its own, but because they had no real idea how quickly small, invisible amounts compound into something significant when nobody is actively watching. None of this requires a complicated budgeting system, an expensive app, or hours of spreadsheet work every weekend. It requires exactly one thing, which is turning the invisible visible again. The money is not disappearing into some mysterious financial black hole that cannot be explained or understood. It is going to specific charges, specific apps, specific habits that have been quietly running in the background of your life because nobody ever stopped long enough to actually look. The moment you look, honestly and without judgment, you get the power back. And that is really what all of this comes down to in the end. It was never about being bad with money. It was about a system that was never designed for you to notice in the first place, until now. If this video helped you see your own spending a little differently, this channel is built entirely around moments like this one. The quiet, overlooked patterns that shape your financial life far more than any single big decision ever will. Every week, this channel breaks down exactly why your money moves the way it does and exactly what to do about it, without judgment and without complicated jargon. If you want more of this, subscribe and turn on notifications so the next video does not slip past you the same way that $4 charge did. There is another video waiting for you right now that goes even deeper into how your spending habits were shaped long before you ever opened your first bank account. And it might explain more about your money than you expect.